All right, thanks everyone. My name is Victor Volkman. I am the current president of the Upper Peninsula Publishers and Authors Association. And we're here with Dan Miller, the copyright detective, who is going to brief us on copyright in the age of artificial intelligence. I would like to remind everyone that this is a private recording for members of the Upper Peninsula Publishers and Authors Association. So please don't share the link outside of anyone in this group. All right, Dan, take us away.
Okay, let's see if we can get this thing to run. How are we looking? Do you see my desktop?
Yep,
Yes.
that's a pretty
Mhm.
desktop.
All right, how's everything look on your end?
Great.
Excellent. Mhm.
Okay, good. As I had mentioned in the warm-up, I did copyright this presentation back in April. So this basically is a derivative of that copyrighted presentation that I did then. But it's every time I've done one of these presentations, it's changed substantially. So this one has changed from the last time that I did it as well. And at the bottom of the screen, I also have a do not train notice on there.
Mhm.
Not that AI is going to pay any attention to that, but at least I have flagged it and I'm asking him not to train off of my presentation. Uh, we'll see what happens. First of all, I am not an attorney, but I make a concerted effort to make sure that everything that I put in here is correct and it's tended to contribute to the copyright literacy and AI literacy of the audience. It's not legal advice. I'm not an attorney. I can't give legal advice. If you need legal advice, seek an attorney. That's what I do. Disclosure is a big component of artificial intelligence. These are the platforms that I used in actually producing this presentation. So the slides use both AI generated and AI assisted materials. And that's a key component to this, is to understand the distinction between those two types of AI. AI generated materials generally are not copyrightable. And that includes that image you see in the upper right hand side of the screen there. That was AI generated. All I did is put in prompts. Anybody could use that image. It cannot be copyrighted. On the other hand, AI assisted materials may or may not be copyrightable depending on how they're used. And the US Copyright Office makes a determination on a case by case basis of when that is copyrightable and when it's not. Why disclose AI generated content? Well, failure to disclose, some people might view that as a form of plagiarism, which is a misleading claim of originality. And that can have severe consequences in educational and professional communities, failure to disclose AI. Non-disclosure erodes trust and credibility. And trust and credibility are two major features of the whole AI phenomenon that we're all experiencing. And in some cases, disclosure is required. Now, here are ways that I used AI in producing this presentation. I found the template that you see in the background there using an AI prompt. It also generated outlines. It originally came up with like 12 slides. I want to be rushed to get through all the slides that I have today, so I'm going to be talking fast. Some people say I sure talk fast for a Southern boy, so I'm going to have to stay at this pace to get through all of these. Description of the presentation, it did such a good job that I still use the presentation I created on the very first presentation that I've done. This is presentation 8 that I've done since February 15th. Topics for the slides helps me do that. Certainly content. You'll see a lot of AI generated content and AI assisted content here. Artwork, I like to sprinkle things here and there. And then fact checking. Fact checking with AI is relative, and I'll get into that quite a bit. What are my objectives? I am hoping that you will be able to think critically about how you use AI after you hear this presentation. First thing is participants should be able to make more informed decisions about using either AI generated or AI assisted content in their works. And you should be able to identify how the different uses of AI will impact the copyrightability of the works that you produce. It's divided up into three areas: copyright and AI basics, the intersection of copyright and AI, and then AI's impacts on creative industries. Part one, copyrightability. So the U.S. Copyright Office has certain requirements to be able to register a work for copyright protection. Has to be eligible for copyright protection, has to be fixed in a tangible form, has to be created by a human author. That's a key component, has to be a human author. Constitutes copyrightable subject matter, and I'll speak more to that. Anytime you see it continued on a slide, I'll talk more about that in another slide. Sufficiently original, independently created, and possesses a minimum degree of creativity. Sometimes you'll read something and you question whether or not that actually has it, but that is one of the things that they look at. Copyrightable subject matter. These are the classic literary works, musical works, including the words for it, dramatic works, pantomimes, choreography, pictorial, graphic, sculptural works, motion pictures, and sound recordings. Lastly, architectural works. All of these are being manipulated, used by, created by AI as well. Legal rights. Copyright law is an incentive for humans to create. That's why it existed. It's existed since the foundations of the country. Copyright law grants exclusive rights to human authors to reproduce copies, to adapt and make derivatives, to distribute copies to the public, perform publicly as in a dramatic work, display publicly as in artworks, and transmit digital sound recordings. AI is doing all of that, by the way. Now, copyright infringement occurs when any of those rights are violated. And some consider that AI-generated outputs are derivatives of the copyrighted content. Exercising rights are key to this whole AI equation. Copyright owners must obtain a certificate of registration before they can launch a lawsuit for copyright infringement. And on the right-hand side, that's actually the certificate we received for this presentation. So that's what they look like. And here's the key. If you don't remember anything else, Wendy, remember that you have to apply for registration within 3 months of publication.
Right.
That's the magic number, 3 months, to qualify for statutory damages and reimbursement of attorney's fees. And that's a big ticket item. It's up to $150,000 for a willful violation of copyright. The courts are actually going to decide AI's fate based on the fair use concept. Now, fair use is a doctrine. It's not a, it's fuzzy at best. So the things that are allowed under fair use typically are commentary, criticisms, news reporting, scholarly works. Now, AI gets involved in that whole process with that. The courts weigh 4 factors for fair use. And the first one is the purpose and character of the work. Transformative is the key, and that's a key component of previous court cases, and I'll cite one in just a second. In fact, there it is. If you remember back when Authors Guild sued Google back in 2015, Google had digitized millions of books, and it went all the way through the courts, and the courts finally decided that that use was transformative and therefore it was fair use. Now, Google has guardrails on that searchable database. You cannot reproduce a book off of that. You can only get small quotes from that. So Google at least has guardrails. AI doesn't have any guardrails yet, and the courts are going to have to put some guardrails on it eventually. The nature of the work, believe it or not, a fiction work has more protection than nonfiction, where nonfiction is reciting facts and all of those, but fiction shows more creativity and therefore has more protection against fair use. The amount and substantiality, poems and song lyrics are short, but again, a poem can be 10 lines and it's still protected as an entity under copyright protection. And to use one line, you're using 10% of it. The effect on the market. Now, this is going to be a biggie, and the courts are already flagging that, is the effect on the market of lost sales. So the first court that's been decided was Thomson Reuters against Ross Intelligence. And Ross basically scraped all the information off of Reuters and was trying to come up with an alternative delivery mechanism using their information. And the courts rejected that as fair use. That was their defense. And Ross actually went bankrupt before the decision was ever made in the courts because of all the lawsuits that Thomson Reuters launched against them. Now, what does generative AI do? It produces content such as text, images, audio, video, computer code. So that's the kinds of things that it produces. Now, there's a lot of ways to use AI in publishing that doesn't have anything to do with creating a document and producing the book. Brainstorming and generating ideas, and I use that all the time, use AI platforms. Researching and fact checking. So the fact checking, you have to be careful, and I'll talk a lot about that. Generating drafts, outlines, and summaries is another good use. Making content more engaging and audience targeted. It helps you actually target the audience that you want to use, and it'll help you tweak the language. Marketing is a great use of AI. Automated enhanced editing, and then social media strategies and content. All those are good uses of AI that you don't have to worry about any copyright aspects unless you actually are trying to copyright marketing materials, for example. How does AI work? The training phase. They gather massive data sets, and these take huge server farms that consume a lot of energy and water and cooling to operate, and they're humongous. There's one, they're looking at bringing 3 Mile Island back online, and one of the uses would be to power server farms for AI platforms. That's how much energy these puppies take. So the process is they clean the format and they pre-process it. And I like to think of it as running everything through a wood chipper. And it breaks all the components down and they actually assign a code. So a Red Delicious apple will have one particular set of codes in there, for example. And that's how they store all this information. Then they'll analyze the data set and they'll look for patterns and distributions, relationships. And the key to that is they look across disciplines. So that's something that's difficult to do. If you're a psychologist, your mindset is going in one direction versus if you're an architect, it goes in quite another. And AI, it just has all those pieces of information, so it can detect patterns that a discipline, the people in the discipline may not ever see, but AI can find that. So that's one real value that AI can provide. Training on text with and without permission. And I'll get a lot into the court cases in just a few minutes. There's a lot of without permission that's in the courts right now. Platform get their text data from books, excerpts, full text, purchased and pirated. And pirating is in the news big time right now. Websites, blogs, your own website, and I'll talk about a website example in just a minute, but your blogs also have been scraped out there by these AI platforms. Social media, Twitter, I can't even talk to that, Twitter, Facebook, etc. News articles, academic research papers and journals, forums, message boards, anything that's on the internet has been scraped. Public domain content, that's fair game. And there's a lot of stuff. Anything published in the United States before 1929 is fair game. It's the public domain. And there's another group of AI platforms that are trying to play fair. And this is one of the things you may see. I don't see it very often, this whole fairly trained certificate indicating that, they obtained licenses, so they went about it the right way in terms of getting the content that they use in the AI platform. Website example. So I put in a prompt to write content for a homepage describing copyright clearance, consulting, and services, which is what we do. And lo and behold, our website shows up the first couple of places, and I dig a little bit deeper into there, and we are 3 out of 5 of the sources that were cited in this Perplexity prompt. Now, if you think about every website in the world has been scraped, And for our website to show up in 3 out of the top 5, yeah, I felt pretty good about that. Had they copied our website, I would have not been a happy camper, but they did not. I liked the way that they formatted the response and all that, so I changed our format to take some of the ideas that I actually found from this. So it can be a double-edged sword. Training on image data with and without permission again. So where do they get their image data? Web crawling, any image found on the internet. Now, the way I like to use this is, Victor, that picture of your Aunt Sally that's sitting on your
Yeah.
Facebook page has been captured and is sitting there in a database somewhere. So
Okay.
virtually everything on the internet has been captured. Now, some platforms, they capture it in a period of time, and the information they spit out may be a year or two old for that. There is a new way that they're doing web crawling at the moment you put in a prompt, and I'll hit that in one of the later slides. User generated information, Getty Images, creates personalized images based on the stuff that they have in their database. Licensed is a key, and that's what's going to come out of the court cases, I think, is the whole thing about licensing or purchasing content. Adobe Firefly uses Adobe stock images that it acquired legitimately for that. Public domain, there are millions of images that you can find on the Library of Congress. And I've had a lot of authors that have used those, and I've pointed them to those in the past. Creative Commons, it's fair game for these things to scrape, again, with or without permission. Then open licenses, that's fair game for anyone as well. It's just the name of the fewest sources. So anything that's been digitized basically has been captured in an AI platform somewhere. Now, you notice at the bottom of the screen, I have this is AI assisted by ChatGPT and Perplexity. So that's where I find this kind of information. This is where I'm doing research. And so this is an example of AI assisted content for that. So there's not an issue with the copyrightability of that. Here's an example, a picture of Vermont apple cider donuts. So think about all the different things that AI would have had to scrape to find, there's donuts, there's wood, there's leaves, there's some kind of juice. It looks more like orange juice than apple, and then 3 different sized apples. The only thing that looks fake in there is the sliced apple in the bottom corner. It looks like a graphic. But think about all the pictures of the apples that have been digitized and put out there. And somehow ChatGPT came up with those apples that you see there. And you'll see this slide again in just a few minutes. Now, here is an area that's getting, and there are 2 court cases out on this already. Perplexity is my go-to platform. I like that, and it has a higher level of accuracy for me. But it's doing this immediate search on the internet. It basically goes out and does like a Google search on the internet to help supplement the information that it's providing. And the first time I submitted for copyright registration, I had an image in there in the presentation, and the examiner said, that looks just like a photograph. And that bothered me. So I went back and looked, and sure enough, Perplexity had copied an image off of a website, and that's what I'd use. So in this case, I blanked those out, and it's called RAG. It's the Retrieval Augmented Generation and Live Web Search Results. So Perplexity and others will feed back live things that it's captured on the internet. It has not been run through the wood chipper. It's just giving you the raw image that it copied. So that's something to be very wary of as you go through this. So this was generated by Perplexity, and then I pulled it into Photoshop so that I could blank out those images. So I don't want to be violating copyright myself in my presentation. How does it work? The generative phase. Users enter prompt, negative or positive prompts, and I'm going to talk a lot about prompts as we go through. Then AI generates an output. You can then follow up with what's called and prompts. So you can dig deeper into it. It keeps a thread. So you can dig deeper and deeper and deeper into the particular prompt that you've input into there. Now, optimizing the outputs from the platform, that's what a prompt is. So here's some ideas about how to do a prompt. And writing a prompt is a skill that you have to do. It's not magic. It is a skill to actually craft a good prompt. So you have to be specific. You have to provide the context that you want the the results to be in. You have to define what the task is, provide clear instructions, identify a target audience if that's appropriate. You can also put what not to include, and then you can refine it with and prompts. And I do that constantly with that. Now, here's a prompt that came out of the U.S. Copyright Office, and look at that. I understand most of the words that are in there. Some I don't even get, but this is in one of the documents that I'll show you in a little bit. It's part 2 copyrightability that came out this year out of the Copyright Office. That's a pretty good looking cat, if you don't mind me saying, but look at the arrow. The cat doesn't have a paw, it has a hand. So, AI is still making mistakes, and I find it's still making mistakes today. But the Copyright Office chose to use that as an example of prompts and of issues. Hallucinations. This is the biggie. This is the 10,000-pound gorilla that's lurking in the jungle when you're doing anything with AI. Hallucination is false information and may sound plausible. Here's what I found on LinkedIn, and I've done this 3 or 4 times. I did it this week as well. Put in what's the shortest capital name. And this is Google's new Gemini, and Gemini is the new kid on the block. It's got a lot of good things going for it, but in this case, it indicated that the shortest capital city in the U.S. is Montpelier. I happen to think Dover, Delaware may have fewer letters in it. So does Denver, Colorado, than Montpelier. So it's still making these kinds of dumb mistakes. And if you don't look it up, you won't know that it's a dumb mistake. Maybe caused by insufficient training data. Well, they've scraped everything's been digitized. I don't know what else there is to scrape. Incorrect assumptions made by AI. That's a programmer's issue. The people who are designing these platforms making incorrect assumptions. Their lack of real world understanding. It's a machine. I don't know how it's ever going to get real world understanding, but the machines are talking to each other. So that's another form of hallucination, and I'll get into that in just a second. Biases in the data, and this is a biggie, and I'll talk more about that. In fact, the next slide. AI-generated content may reflect biases. Racial bias, gender bias, age bias, ability bias, cultural bias, socioeconomic, religious, and every other bias that is known to humankind that has been captured in a digital form is fed into these AI platforms. This is another biggie that should be cause for concern for everyone. AI misalignment. And that's a gap between what the AI system actually does and what it's supposed to do. It's doing its own thing a lot of times. And I'll hit on that with some specific examples in just a minute or two. Now, what's to prevent AI platforms from training using hallucinations? Nothing. So what happens is an AI model hallucinates. The hallucination gets entered on the internet, like some reports out of the a federal report that came out a couple of months ago is full of erroneous citations. AI just made up the citations, and it was cited in decisions dealing with vaccinations. Then future models scrape the hallucinations, and the errors reinforce. And what you have is you have the snake eating its tail. It's just, and it seems to be getting worse in some cases. Here's my key phrase. Here's the second thing to remember after the 3 months to file the registration for your copyright. I originally started saying trust but verify, and now I say don't trust and always verify the information that you get from AI. So I've been looking up hallucination rates, and Perplexity, that's one I like. So I asked it, or I found out what reports does it have on the percentage of hallucinations. And it's saying this is pretty good. This is about the best I've found in anything. For general search inquiries, it's around 5% is the hallucination rate that they find. It could be in another section, 21%, then it has variability. Now, here is another key thing to remember about AI. You can ask it, what's its confidence level? How much confidence do you have in what you just told me? In this case, Perplexity said that if you look at the bottom, it has high confidence on that 5% for the general, but it only has moderate confidence in what the other percentages are that it's generated. Here is something else that I find very interesting. This is in the terms of use for OpenAI. Output may not always be accurate. You should not rely on output from our services as a sole source of truth or factual information or as a substitute for professional advice. They are warning us right there in the terms of conditions, terms of use. Unfortunately, people usually don't read the terms of use. It's only people like me that read terms of use. Now, I also, since I copied it from them without permission, I'm declaring this fair use because this is a teaching presentation. And that's a fair use example is educational use. OpenAI did a study itself and it produced it, reported it back on July the 21st. On the bottom, you'll see the source of that. They put this report out. So they have a simple Q&A that asks 4,326 concise questions with only one answer. The red shows the rate of hallucination. The O1 model is 44%, the O3 model 51%, the O4 mini 79% of the time it hallucinated on the answers. That's incredible. Only 20% of the time, 1 in 5 was right. They did publish this. I have to give them that. They did publish this report. Well, there's another set of questions that it asks about factual questions. It's a little bit better there. The O1 model was 47% right. The O3 model, as you see in green, is 59% right. And the O4 model is 36. It was still almost 50-50 chance in that model of giving you the right answer. So that's why I say don't trust and always verify. And look at the source when you're doing the verification. The ChatGPT-5 was just released on August the 7th. And here's something interesting to note in here. And again, this is their information. I pulled it right off of their report. That it's in the GT5, it's a 9.6% hallucination rate for the paid plan. But you look right below that, if you get the free plan, it's 40 to 47% error rate. Now, the other thing about the paid plan is it uses that web access for browsing. It updates their database by browsing the web. So that's like what Perplexity was doing in that slide that I showed you earlier for that. They're going out and getting new information. So 9.6%, that's still twice what the Perplexity was that I showed you earlier. But at least they're sharing this information. So I do have to applaud that. So I put in a prompt, or I put in this question, do you ever speculate? I ask AI questions about AI all the time. And here's what Perplexity said. And they always use the first person. So I talk to them as a first person. It's very conversational. And Perplexity says, I may provide informed inferences or reasoned assumptions. ChatGPT, yes, but when I speculate, I try to do it in a controlled, transparent way. How do you know it's transparent? They just give you the answer. They don't tell you that I speculated on it unless you ask them or ask about the confidence level. And then Claude, yes, I do speculate in my responses, but I try to be thoughtful about it, when and how I do it. Very nice of them to do that. Thanks, Claude. So here's another example. So I asked this, I'm trying to find out what the annual percentage rate was on either I could pay for something or I could pay it over 3 years. So I asked, or I do this typically, I ask all 4 platforms, what's the answer? Perplexity said the percentage was 21.19, and they're highly confident that's the right answer. ChatGPT, no, it's 29%, and they're very confident. Claude, 18%. They're 85%. Now, how do you like that? It's 85% confidence, not 84 or 86. It's 85%. Google Gemini, 15.3. Well, I found the formula. I went into an Excel spreadsheet and I calculated it, and it's 15.03. So Gemini got it correct. Well, ChatGPT was almost twice the interest rate. And this is a simple mathematical formula that only has 3 or 4 components, and they made these huge mistakes. So be wary. Now, this is a little fun one that I like to share to lighten the moment a little bit. So I've done this several times. I'll ask it to write a children's picture book about a tomato named Tommy who comes of age. And it gave me, a blow by blow description. In virtually every one of them, in the end, Tommy gets eaten. That's his final finale on that's what his whole purpose in existence is to get eaten. So I asked to create an image that actually depicts that. So this is what AI generated for me as what I'd have to put in that picture book if I actually used that one. And I like that image. That was happened pretty quickly there. Now, part two, intersection of copyright and AI. Now, I wear this shirt intentionally because it's gray and it has a lot of patterns and it has lots of shades of gray. And that's both copyright and AI. It has lots of shades of gray in there and it's very complicated. The U.S. Copyright Office has released 3 major documents, and I'm going to talk about each of those since last July. So in the last year, these 3 major publications. These were coming out while I was doing presentations, and that's part of what I was having to update a new document that came out and to read the thing and try to make sense out of it as we went along. So the first one deals with digital replicas. So it uses the whole digital technology to reproduce someone's voice or appearance. And this report recommended new federal laws. The first one actually came out on May the 19th for that. And the best way to think about this takedown law is revenge porn that people were putting out. So this one is the first one that actually addresses that whole issue. So they are recommending new federal legislation dealing with digital replicas. The second report deals with copyrightability, and that was the big thing I was concerned about is what are the implications for copyright. And this document lays out the key policies, rules, recommendations regarding copyrightability. First is human authorship is required. AI assistance versus AI generation does not negate copyrightability. So you can get materials copyrighted that have used AI assistance. AI prompts alone are not sufficient control to qualify. And that's a biggie. And I'll cite some court cases in just a minute for that. Then on a case by case is how all this gets evaluated when the copyright examiner looks at what your submission is. Interestingly enough, they do not recommend any new legislation. The laws that we have on the books, they say is sufficient. It's just a matter of implementing those. And that was a surprise to me when I saw that. So I want to look at copyrightability. And this is what took me about 4 or 5 months to finally figure this out. Once I saw a visual image of it, I found that it's a lot easier to explain to the audiences the whole concept of copyrightability. Again, it's on a grayscale. You have the absolute black that's not copyrightable on one extreme, and you have the absolute white, it is copyrightable on the other, but lots of shades of gray in the middle. Human authored content is copyrightable if it's sufficiently creative. On the other extreme, you have content that is not copyrightable. Now, in the past, before AI, there were 4 categories that were unclaimable. It's always been this way. Something that was previously published, it already exists out there, you can't claim it, you didn't create it. Materials that are registered, that's also copyright infringement if you do that, so that you could not claim copyright for that. Materials that are in the public domain, anybody can use it. You claim copyright on it. A lot of books are that way. They'll come up, somebody will get a book that's in the public domain and they'll slap a new preface or put some new graphics in it, and then they'll claim copyright on the copyright page. But it's only those new pieces that are copyrightable. None of that existing public domain stuff, you cannot recopyright it because it's already lapsed. And then lastly, materials that are owned by another party. So let's say, Victor, you give me a photograph that you took of somebody. I get permission from you. I can put that in my book. However, you hold a copyright for that. I don't. So that's an example of material owned by another party. and I can't claim copyright on that because it's your copyright. Now, since March of 23, there is a line in the sand. AI generated content or non-human authorship cannot be copyrighted. Now, that monkey is intentional on the left-hand side. And that was a court case that happened. So what happened in 2011, a fellow by the name of Slater set up a camera out in the jungles of Indonesia that made it easy for monkeys to take pictures, and that's what it did. That monkey on the right, you see, took all kinds of pictures, and Slater published a book of those selfies that are in there. PETA got a hold of it and sued him, trying to get copyright claim on behalf of the monkey. Well, the judge dismissed the case in 2016, saying copyright does not apply to animals. Well, PETA wasn't happy with that answer. They filed an appeal, and the appeals court said animals cannot legally hold copyright. So machines cannot hold copyright, and animals cannot hold copyright. So we know that human authorship is copyrightable. AI generated content using only prompts is not copyrightable, but this AI assisted is a huge area in the middle that is where the confusion comes from. And I'm going to try to clarify what that is. Here's another court case. This is the first one that actually hit, 2012. A fellow named Thayer, he actually created an AI platform, then he generated that image back in 2012. That's what, 13 years ago now. Took him some time, but 6 years later, he actually filed a copyright application for registration in the AI platform's name, which is an odd thing to do. The U.S. Copyright Office denied copyright, said it lacked human authorship. He took his time again 3 years later. He filed a complaint against that. It was denied because it lacked human authorship. He appealed to the U.S. Court of Appeals. The U.S. Court of Appeals upheld the denial. He is one step from, or two steps from, the Supreme Court. So his case may be the first that actually goes to the Supreme Court about AI-generated content. Now, what came out of that last decision by the Court of Appeals is AI output does not qualify as a work made for hire. And Wendy, that's probably a concept you're very familiar with, is work made for hire, because you have to be very careful about that. And now the courts have put the work made for hire issue and attached it to AI generated content as well. So can't claim it that you own it because the machine created it. Here's another one that's still working its way through. This probably will be the second one that might reach the Supreme Court. A fellow named Allen used Midjourney. Midjourney is all over the news now for court cases, and I'll hit several of those. So he filed a copyright registration for the image that he created. The U.S. Copyright Office denied that. So on the left, you see the fuzzy image that he started with, and then on the right, you'll see one called The Work for that. So he's asked the courts to reverse that. He claimed he used 624 prompts. So it doesn't matter how many prompts you've used. A prompt is a prompt is a prompt. And that course is pending. But on the right-hand side, you can see that there's a lot of definition in there that he goes through. So that one we will see again. And I like to use Wikimedia. Flags a lot of stuff that's out there, and they flagged it as being public domain, because right now it is, because Allen has not won his case. So I did not need permission to be able to use that in my slide set because it's in the public domain. Here's another one. There are people that are trying the courts, just like the Thayer did for that. They're trying to see how far they can press AI. And Casanova is another one who is doing that. So she created a book back in 22, this Zora of the Dawn, and it's a graphic novel. So she used AI generated images for that. So she actually got copyright registration in September, and she talked about it online, and then somebody at the U.S. Copyright Office says, whoa, hold the phone. Those are AI generated images. So they canceled her registration for that because the use of AI was not clearly cited. Well, back then, AI was just getting started and there were no ground rules, if you will, on how to declare it. Well, the Copyright Office corrected that, and they say now applicants have a duty to disclose. She had actually listed Midjourney, the platform she used, as a co-author on the book, but that didn't cut it with the U.S. Copyright Office. Now, they did in 23 award her copyright for the text that she wrote and the overall book, how she arranged the AI images, but none of the images, including the cover, they have no copyright protection. So I could take that cover and use it if I wanted to, because it's AI generated and it's not copyrightable. She tried them again. So the next year after she got that from the US Copyright Office, she submitted an application for this Rose Enigma. And she started with the image on the left. Now you notice below the graphic, I actually sought permission from her because her image, as you'll see, her image on the left is copyrighted. She created that. And I got permission to use that in the slide presentation. So I'm using that image with permission. So she included a 7-page letter outlining the process, including that this is what I started with, the hand-drawn image on the left. And they awarded copyright for her original image, the one on the white on the left, but there's no copyright of the non-human expressions of the image you see on the right-hand side. Well, if I were to use the image on the right-hand side, I don't know what parts of that are the human part that the Copyright Office recognizes. So I will err on the side of getting permission, which is what I did here. This is a very interesting one that came out with a platform called Invoke. This just happened in January. So the U.S. Copyright Office awarded a copyright for the selection, coordination, arrangement of the components of the image I'm going to show you, created entirely using an AI platform. This is the first time that it's happened. And that's it. Doesn't matter what you think of that image, there it is. And it's called a single piece of American cheese. I got permission to use that image from the company as well for that. You see their note that I'm supposed to follow. So I've got the copyright credits that they asked for below that image as well. The other thing that was very interesting, and if you have any illustrators, graphic artists that are watching this video, they did a full demonstration that was submitted to the U.S. Copyright Office, and the link is shown below that in yellow. You can go in and watch, and what they did is they turned the recorder on when he did the first keystroke. So you can watch that entire image being created. Now, the nice thing about this, I use Photoshop a lot. If you think about the AI platform with prompts combined with Photoshop on hyper steroids or whatever. Give you an example. If you look at the cheese on the top of the image there, there is a paint tool to paint in melted cheese. So if you think about how phenomenal that platform is, so I've recommended that to 3 or 4 illustrators already to start looking at that. So that's the way to use AI to create something that would be extremely difficult to create any other way. Back to my copyrightability slide. I have filed an application for copyright on this image, by the way, and for some reason they haven't made a decision yet. So I nudged them and saying, well, I should get an answer within 10 days. So I submitted this as a 2-dimensional graphic. Again, I'm testing the system to see if the system will award me a copyright on that. It took me months to come up with that simple idea. If I can produce something graphically, for me, that's what works. To me, that explains the whole copyrightability issue very well. I'm a visual learner, so if I can see it in a picture, I can understand it a lot better. So I have a proposition for you. If you start with AI-generated materials, it decreases the likelihood that you're going to be able to get copyrightability. It can't be copyrighted if you start with AI-generated materials. On the other hand, if you start with human-generated materials and only use the phrase's de minimis amount of AI, increases the likelihood. I'm going to get into this whole de minimis notion just now, because that's a term I wasn't familiar with. Now, here's another reason to care. We're all dealing with publications, aren't we? We all want to get it on Amazon. Well, guess what? Amazon requires anyone submitting a book to disclose AI-generated text, images, or translations that start with AI generation. Doesn't matter how much it's tweaked, if you start with AI generated, they want to know. Now, right now, they're not flagging it. I think that will happen downstream. That's my prediction. But right now, they're not. They know it. No one else does, unless you read what it is. But if you don't disclose it, they can pull your book off the shelf. So if they find out later that you did that and you didn't tell them, your book can be gone. But if you use AI assisted content, you don't have to disclose it. And that's essentially the same thing with the US Copyright Office. You don't have to disclose it. You have to know the difference, however. Now, here's this principle of this de minimis, how much you use AI. So here's the key. Would the AI generated materials be copyrightable if it were created by a human? So let's say you get AI to tweak a poem, or if you get AI to generate a poem, you know that a poem is copyrightable. Therefore, that's not de minimis, so you can't claim that. So it's the small amount. That's the phraseology we know. If it cannot be copyrightable if it's created by a human, then you don't have to disclose it. But if it would stand alone, then you do. Here's some examples of de minimis. Editing and formatting, things like grammar and spell checkers, all those, that's okay. You don't have to report that. Simple image and audio enhancements, tweaking things a little bit like I tweak things in Photoshop with the generated. Names, short phrases, and titles, facts were never copyrightable. So if AI is generating those, it's not copyrightable. It's de minimis. And then brainstorming and ideation. This is what is very useful for authors and marketing people. Generating character names, but be careful about trademark names. That's the other side of the other side of a double-edged sword, if you will, the whole trademark issue. Inspiration, plot ideas, brainstorming. I use brainstorming stuff all the time. Catalog or dialogue, and I don't know where I saw catalog, dialogue and scene concepts. It's a good way to find those, and outlines. So here is I'm translating this in terms of a traffic signal, if you will. And I found this after I created this image. I actually found this a gradient idea by Jonathan Bailey. So this is a gradient, and that's what I started with in Photoshop to create that image. So I found this by Jonathan Bailey. He does plagiarism today, and I've been following Jonathan for years. And I was doing a search on examples, trying to find ways to help the audience understand what AI use would be fair game and which would get you in trouble. And it's not the platform, it's how you use the platform. So that was a problem I was having. And then I ran across Jonathan's by doing searches, if you will, using AI, and they flagged Jonathan's blogs that he has out there. So I contacted Jonathan, I got permission, and his information is at the bottom of the screen for that. So here's his gradient, and they fit perfectly on my scheme with his gradation. So the first part, if it's entirely human written, it's copyrightable, as is using grammar, spell checker, sentence rewriting. That's all fair game. Okay, now we're getting into the cautionary area. If you're using it to create paragraphs or rewrite sections and those kinds of things, writing short passages, one that's really kind of in the middle is using AI to write paragraphs. So that is very suspect, if you will, and you may have to disclose that if you're filing for copyright registration. If you're having AI write large sections, if you're starting with AI generated works, even the heavy human editing is still way over in the red area that you'd have to disclose. If you use limited area, it's getting more and more AI. And then if it's entirely only AI generated, that's not going to be copyrightable. So that's kind of a way to think about how you use AI and what you're going to have to disclose downstream. Now, keep in mind, let's say you disclose it in your application. That only means that piece of your book is not copyrightable. All the rest of the book is still fine. It's no different than using an image you got with permission. Just like the picture Victor gave me an example earlier, that belongs to him. The rest of my book is still copyrightable, just not that piece of it. So it's, it's not the end of the world. It's just you have to disclose it. It's the fifth element that you have to disclose. Now, AI's impact. Well, let's go to look at this stuff a little bit in finer detail. So the details in the prompt matter. So here I said, create a stylized black and white illustration of of a man playing a saxophone. And that's what it created. So that was ChatGPT. Then I modified that and I said, put a colorized abstract. I only changed one word, and that's what it created for that. So a single word can make a big difference in terms of what you get. Now, ease of generation is an issue with AI. So it's the human contribution piece, and that's what the Copyright Office wants to know. How much did you contribute and how much did the machine contribute? So how much creativity went into writing that prompt? Not very much. It took less than a minute to create that image. So there's not a lot of time spent in that. And what it cost me? Zero. I use the free Chat GPT and it spit it out for nothing. So I've got almost nothing invested in that. The machine has all the investment, if you will. So why should I be able to claim that? In my sense, I shouldn't, and I can't. Now, here's another piece of this thing. It can be difficult to get what you want. And sometimes I just give up. I'll use Canva and I'll have 20 or 30 images before I get close to what I want. And then I have to pull it into Photoshop and tweak it. Another key concern is the loss of income and credit to artists, illustrators, and designers. Now, I like that new Invoke tool because to me, that's a new tool set that those folks can have that they can use to their advantage. And creativity and originality can suffer. That one image I had earlier of the robot sitting there typing a keyboard, I see that kind of images all over the place. So not a lot of creativity there. Derivatives. I'd mentioned that this PowerPoint presentation is a derivative of one I copyrighted on April the 8th. So AI platforms obviously are trained using content that exists somewhere that's out there. And they have to incorporate that. So how many pictures of donuts do they have and how do they break that donut down and come up with their own donut or their own apples or juice or anything else? So that's you know the images started somewhere. So how much credit do I get if that's my donut in there? And that's being disputed, obviously, in the courts. Artists and illustrators can view that as infringement and plagiarism. And I'll show you some that there's no question in my mind that it's absolute plagiarism. So I have to ask AI about itself. I mentioned it earlier. So I asked ChatGPT, did it use other people's stuff to create that image? And it said that it didn't. It simply used its training data and combined patterns and elements for that. So ChatGPT told me it made that up. It didn't copy that from anybody else. Now, it doesn't tell me whether it's lying or not, so I don't know. Art. This is one I had fun with. So I pulled some carrots from the garden and took a picture of it. And then I asked ChatGPT to create an oil painting in the style of Vincent van Gogh. And there's what it created. I could not have created that for a very long time. I don't have those skills. I like that image. Uh, it's nice. I can use it. So can you. It's not copyrightable because AI generated. However, I filed this it was in the presentation, the U.S. Copyright Office granted me copyright registration for my photograph of carrots with my hand over there. So that was an interesting part of the certification that we got for that. Audio. Apple does digital narration now for audiobooks, and that impacts a lot of people that I know in the publishing community. So that could create a significant shift away from human narrators. And as of yesterday, Apple currently offers 4 American voices, male and female for fiction, male and female for nonfiction. And that's what they're offering. But that's one of the things that's really happening. Here's a third document that came out in this whole AI thing, and that came out on May the 9th. So again, that was recent. That caused another big change in my PowerPoint presentation. So it's part 3. And funny enough, it's a pre-publication publication. And I don't really understand that, but that's the way they've labeled it. Now, there's been chaos. around the release of that publication. This is the one that was supposed to point out how AI is liable for all the goofy stuff that they're doing. It's not there. So the day before, the head of the Library of Congress was fired. Now, leadership is still in dispute as of a couple of days ago. I didn't look at it recently, but 2 days ago, it was still in dispute. And then the day after it came out, they fired the head of the U.S. Copyright Office. An appeals court on the 10th of this month temporarily reinstated Perlmutter, who signed my certificate, if you will. So that's whole Copyright Office is still in turmoil right now, and that's probably why I haven't gotten my graphic determined yet. Now, what's in the publication, though? This one has more footnotes than you can comprehend. I think it had like 580 footnotes in this document that's like 114 pages. It is not light reading. So what's in it? Here's one of the, I was looking for the smoking gun after all this stuff happened with the firing. So here's one of the smoking guns that I found. The copying involved in AI training threatens significant potential harm to the market or value of copyrighted works. That's a red flag that it just stuck in the ground. And here's the second one. The Copyright Office expects that some of the copyrighted works will be fair and some will not. And we're already seeing that, and I have some examples of that. So right now, as of today, or as of 2 days ago, there were 48 open cases of AI. And these are the ones that are against. So OpenAI had 15 open cases, going all the way down to Perplexity and Google Gemini. They have 2. I had to change this slide yesterday because there was another case that came out against Perplexity. They only had 1. So that's an example of, this is a fast moving target, if you will, for that. But Midjourney is racking up more. They're kind of in the middle there with these. Anthropic, that's the one I'm going to talk about quite a bit. 32 of those cases are about copyright infringement. So some have been decided and partially decided. They haven't worked their way all the way through to the Supreme Court yet, but the first one was this Reuters and Ross that I mentioned earlier, that the courts rejected Ross's claim for fair use because it's direct competition. This is the biggie, Bartz versus Anthropic. Anthropic is Claude, if you will. So the judge said that the AI training on copyrighted books that they purchased was transformative and therefore it was fair use. However, downloading and storing pirated books is not fair use. And they had downloaded over 7 million books from sources and built a central library and kept them intact for that. So that's the one that we are seeing in the news right now. And they flagged piracy in this particular case. Now, again, these are working their way through. It's just the beginning of the litigation, if you will. Now, there's a settlement that was a surprise already, and that's in the recent news here, and that's what it looks like. So it's, again, the plaintiffs and the defendant are trying to settle without going to trial. If they went to trial, the number is phenomenal. If you take 150,000 times 7 million books, it comes to be over $1 trillion. So the judge said, there's no way it's going to go there. But what has happened, they submitted the document, if you will. The judge is very skeptical. He's skeptical on both sides of the equation. Is it fair to the AI platform and is it fair to the authors? And they didn't give him a lot of details. Here's what it looks like. They agreed to $1.5 billion, which is $3,000 per book. Now, why is it 3,000? Why is it only 500,000 books? Well, that's what they're guessing is the number of books that qualify based on filing within 5 years, if you will. Now, I said you need to file within 3 months. Well, there's another clause in there that within 5 years, you can reap some benefits. So they are guessing that there's about 500,000. I think they had like 479,000 titles actually identified a few days ago. So the judge asked him for more information by the 15th. That's when they're supposed to tell him what that number is. Is it 500,000 or is it something else? And he has a hearing on the 25th. So be watching the news for that. Now, there's supposed to be a searchable database with qualified titles. So once that's out, you can look that up and see if your title is in there. Here's the other thing is you can submit your contact information. And I have submitted both of our books in there so that if I'm one of those lucky winners of the lottery, I want my $3,000 check sent to my home address. And there's a place there that, and it's Anthropic copyrightsettlement.com where you can put the contact information for your work so they'll know how to get in touch with you with your check once you get that. But the judge is very skeptical. We'll see how this plays out. And then we'll have to see the fact that it's settled out of court means if they settle and he accepts it, then it won't go any further. So that one will not proceed on through the appeals process. If he rejects it, however, yes, let's start over again. Here's another one that a partial decision has been made, and it was similar that the AI training was considered to be highly transformative in their fair use. That's factor one that I mentioned earlier. But this is a big but. He also indicated that the plaintiffs only made a half-hearted argument about market harm. And look at what he put in his ruling there. Under fair use doctrine, harm to the market for the copyrighted work is more important than the purpose for which the copies are made. He's saying that factor four is more important and can override the whole transformative nature of that. That opens the door, in my mind, for all kinds of lawsuits and also tells plaintiffs how they need to approach lawsuits for AI copyright infringement. Is what's the harm to the market? This one happened on June the 11th. So finally, Disney and Universal sued Midjourney. If you look at the image on the left, that's what Midjourney produced. If you look at the robots on the right, Disney's character, to me, so what happened is the gold colored robot is shorter, and the other one that rolls around is taller. But to me, that is very clear copyright infringement. We'll see what the courts say. But Disney and Universal finally sued Midjourney, and then Warner Brothers, September the 4th. This one happened fairly recently. They have sued Midjourney as well for those. And I pull these pages right out of the copyright, the lawsuit filing, if you will. So that's why it's I'm flagging fair use. Okay, I can catch my breath. See if you have any questions. And there's how to get in touch with me. So the audience needs to know that just pop me an email to that address that's on there, and tell me you saw the presentation, and let me know if you have any follow-up questions. I'd be happy to answer those. And you can see other recordings and also podcasts that I've done at thecopyrightdetective.com. So that's how you can see what we're doing on our website.
Okay,
So let me
great.
stop sharing here. And
Thank you, Dan. That was amazing.
You're welcome.
And so much. May I start with at least one question? I'm sure there'll be many.
Sure.
Okay, let's say that you've written a book, you haven't done anything with AI, so it's your copyright. But let's say you go to AI to make a book cover. Could you use, for example, your carrots like Van Gogh as a book cover? Can you use it as a book cover?
Sure. And so can you, and so can everybody else, because it's not copyrightable.
Copyrightable.
You
Okay.
can use it. It's just, is it copyright protected? No, it's not.
Yeah,
because it would
meaning
generate-
that anybody else could use it as well,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. Thank you. Okay,
You're welcome.
because there are a lot of people, out there. It's very, trying to save funds sometimes and
Yeah.
running to AI. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I use it a lot of times when I would not ordinarily engage an illustrator to do it anyway. In other words, I would just not do it if I can't get a good image that I like using AI.
Uh-huh.
So I don't feel like I'm taking money out of the pockets of illustrators and artists for that.
Mhm.
That's kind of my own rationale, if you will, my own ethics issue for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Worth hearing. Now, let's say you are a newbie to AI, and of course you have all the options. I've always heard that Claude gives you the most, well, I don't want to use the word accurate, but as you said, always check everything, right? But what you seem to like Perplexity. Are you able to share which ones you would recommend and which ones are free?
Oh, I think all of them have a free version. The
Okay.
Perplexity, I had some offer from my internet provider or phone provider or somebody where I got a free year's uh, subscription to the Perplexity Pro. So I've got the high powered version of Perplexity. So that may
Oh,
be why I use it. It has more guardrails and it's a more
uh-huh.
powerful engine. But again, it's choosing the AI platform for the use that you want. Now I can't
Oh,
create images using Perplexity. So
okay.
I use ChatGPT or Canva to use
Okay.
those, for example. Um,
Okay.
Gemini is the default when I have that one as well, and I use a freebie. They kind of piloted that when you're doing a Google search. So you're getting AI results all along. By the way, those summaries that you get off of the Google summary now, that's one of the
Yes.
court cases that were just added. So
Oh,
somebody is saying, is
interesting.
their summary, they're challenging that both for a Gemini and for Perplexity
Mm-hmm.
in the courts. So those are two of the new ones that just happened this month. But
Mm-hmm.
it depends. Part of it, again, they all hallucinate just about different things at different times. And I don't have any confidence I've got a right answer. If I need a right answer, like that interest rate, Perplexity was wrong. You know, Claude was wrong. ChatGPT, they were all wrong
Mm-hmm.
significantly.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Gemini was actually the right one. So again, try them. Try the free ones. Again, the free ones are going to have, at least from the statistics that I've seen, the hallucination rates were much
Is
higher in that
high.
study
Yes, of
for the
course.
freebies.
Yeah.
So it depends on what you're doing. If you're writing a faction, if you're writing a non-fictional factional work, you're running a lot more risk, if you're trying to find facts. And that's why I'll ask the same exact prompt to all four platforms. And then I'll ask,
Oh, that's wise.
that's
Okay.
what
Try
I
it on
do
the
is,
different platforms.
I ask them exactly the same question. So I know it's not a variation in the prompt for that. So that's one way I try to help me understand what may be garbage. And there's a lot of garbage still floating around. I still count fingers and toes when I get images. I've had images. I had one that had 8 fingers, trying to get a genie coming out of a bottle, had 8 fingers on one hand.
Oh, okay. Now, you were talking about the Anthropic copyright settlement. If I go to that website and I look up, for example, titles of wonderful authors I've worked with, and the titles come up, what can those authors do?
Well, it's the reverse of what you're saying. So there's not a
Okay.
list yet. That's to be created yet. That list of the
Oh,
titles that's in there. But what they can do is they can go in and actually register their contact information for
okay.
each of the titles. So that's what you can do is get their contact information so that if there is a settlement, the judge approves it, then they'll know where to send the check.
Okay, and you have done that, you already said. You,
Yes.
where, with Anthropic copyright settlement, is that where you sent yours?
Whatever that website
You
was, it was
had
on
it
the
on
slide.
you had it on the
I had
slide.
it on the slide.
Anthropic copyright settlement.com.
Yeah, I think I'd put it in on there was a lawyer's firm that also had that as well. I think I actually filed on an attorney's website before that was
Okay,
famous. So, by the
okay.
way, at the bottom of that same slide, for people that want
Mhm.
to go back and look at it, Authors Guild has a really valuable article that they put out, and that's where I found that information was on Authors
Okay,
Guild. So I follow that pretty closely with that, and they're the
thank
ones
you.
that are very active in lawsuits against
Hmm.
AI
Hmm.
for that. So I like Authors Guild for that.
That's really helpful
Thank you.
and amazing.
Yeah, it is.
I hope you get your check. Every check counts now.
We do too. Any other questions? Let Wendy catch her breath there.
There must be other questions.
Either that or I did it so well that this took all the mystery out of copyright and AI. I hope that's the answer.
It's plausible. We didn't have any hallucinations with you. I'm sure
Oh,
about
good.
that.
All I see is I see Bike One on there has a question.
Yeah, she's
Yeah,
ready.
well, the question I have is, I thought it was at 8 Eastern time, 7 Central.
Nope.
Did I miss the whole
it's-
thing?
It was
7,
7 Central.
the other way around.
The good news for you is Victor is recording this, so
Oh,
you will be
good.
able to watch the recording.
I'm
So,
like, I think I'm at the end.
so go ahead and ask your question. And I'll tell you if I addressed it in the presentation. What's your question?
Oh, my question was, did I miss the whole thing?
You did. You did not hallucinate.
Oh my gosh. It's like, I thought it started at 7 my time. Oh, shoot. Oh,
Next
okay.
time,
was-
ask AI to do the time zone conversion for you.
I do that because I have family that travels all over the world, and I have to know what time it is in Swahili, and I have no idea. So,
Well, I apologize. I was all excited about it.
oh, I
Well,
think
you will be. It's worth listening to when you get the copy.
you'll be
You'll
able to
learn
put
a
it on
lot.
pause. You'll be able to put it on pause too and say, "What did he just say?" No, wait a minute.
Right, right. I actually do better that way because I'm a copious note taker.
Yeah, I think I talk so fast you can't really keep notes unless you do shorthand.
I've got kind of a dumb question there for you, Daniel. I've noticed Adobe stock images is just jam-packed with AI created stuff. I mean, I license all my Adobe stuff, but are they missing something? Am I missing something?
Adobe is using its own. That was one of the things I had in one of the slides. I think Adobe is one of those
Oh,
that uses its own licensed images to create other images.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, so that's one of the ones that's doing it right, because they have
Mhm.
permission to use those. Now, what I don't know if old images, before AI existed, if you license it with Adobe,
Mhm,
there wasn't an AI clause in there, so I don't know how they're dealing with that issue.
mhm.
Yeah. But it's a brave new world out there. We just need to learn how to cope and how to basically how to defend ourselves if that's possible. But my prediction is we're going to have to find some guardrails. I don't put the scary stuff in the slides, but AI platforms are talking to other AI platforms without any human intervention whatsoever.
Ever.
And there's one study that they did. They gave AI an unsolvable problem,
Mhm.
and they told the platform, shut yourself down if you cannot find the answer. The AI platform resorted to blackmailing the programmer who was running this, trying to get them to not shut them down. So for a machine to be threatening blackmail. Now remember, they have scraped everything that has been digitized. So you think about all the works out there talking about people lying and cheating and blackmailing and everything else. That's part of their database. So
Right.
they've trained on how to do all the naughty stuff
Amazing.
that human beings are guilty of. So we'll see. But guardrails, in my mind, this is my own philosophical position. Guardrails are needed badly for AI. I've even read where the scientists don't really know how some of this stuff is working that created the AI platforms. They don't understand some of this as well. So to me, it's scary stuff. Now, I use AI every day, so I'm not afraid to use it. I'm just cautious when I get an answer. But
As I agree, we all should be. Mhm.
yeah,
Sometimes it's just obvious that you have to go check.
yeah.
So,
But I remember having misgivings when the internet first went live too, back in '94. How are we ever going to do business and trust our money that's out on the web and all that kind of stuff? And how many times a day do we go to buy something on Amazon? So they found ways to do guardrails. So I think we will have to find ways to do guardrails for AI. But anyway,
thank you. This was wonderful.
you're welcome.
I appreciate your energy, time, intelligence, and passion to really share what you know. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's fun stuff. I enjoy doing these too. I enjoy sharing with publishing groups. 'Cause, you know, I'm a past president of the Colorado Independent Publishers Association, so
Oh,
I've been dealing with this stuff for a long time. It's
okay. Is
new
that where
tools.
you're living now? You're not living in the South?
No, my southern accent's watered down from moving around for 50 years. I live in Colorado now, so I can see the Rocky Mountains. But and we should have snow flying any day, but it's still getting in the 90s, so still hot out here.
Oh, no. Oh,
But I appreciate the opportunity to talk. And again, I'm happy to reply to people that send notes that see the recording. I mentioned to Victor earlier that someone had seen the presentation I'd done back in April from Pakistan. And he had taken a lot of the ideas and created a PowerPoint presentation for his university dealing with copyright and AI. So we never know how far these recordings get. And I'm always happy to hear from people and invite that interaction. Enjoy that.
thank you so much.
Well,
I'm
thank you very
gonna
much.
sign off. I have someone who's not feeling well I'm gonna go check on. So
Enjoy Mexico.
thank you so much. Many
Uh,
blessings.
Thank you.
Bye for now. Ciao.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dan. You've been very generous with your time, and I believe our members will reach out to you and thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome. Take care.
So Victor, are you gonna have it on the UPA website, the recording?
No, it's only gonna go out through the email internal discussion group. So if you're on the members mailing list, which
Oh,
is
okay.
probably how you heard about it, although could have been from
Great.
this release, but yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, so the UPA email that usually goes out to everybody?
Yes.
Yes, okay, yeah, okay, great. So
And-
wonderful.
And if you send me any questions, tell me you are the latecomer.
Okay, yeah, that's how, will be my ID.
There you go. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm sorry I missed it.
All right. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.